Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this show is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, and it's coming to you from scenic downtown Woodstock, New York, on Channel 23, our educational TV channel, and from YouTube, Let's Live with Thurman Greco. And we have our favorite guest here this evening, and she has not been here in it's like 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
Because of the sudden loss of her husband. So we are very, very happy to welcome Fiona Saxman.
Thank you.
Susan, say hello to your listening and viewing
Hello,
audience.
everyone. I almost didn't make it, but sort of divine intervention brought me here
Really?
tonight. Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, after the passing of David, which was just heartbreaking for so many of us, I didn't think I could do this. Because here I am talking about life after death and, spirits, and that's what I do. I'm a clairvoyant by trade. And I always really do believe, of course, and that we go on and consciousness can't be destroyed and energy just changes. It transmutes into something else. Strangely enough, since David's passing, maybe because it hit so close to home, I haven't really felt him. And this has really done my head in. And then when I came to you that day, a couple of weeks ago at the flea market, and I said I wasn't going to be able to do the show because I haven't felt David, all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, I felt David. I felt David really strongly.
I think that was important.
Yeah, I was standing there telling you, if you recall, I was standing with my little dog Ghost, telling you that I wasn't going to be able to do the show, and all of a sudden I could only describe it as a whoosh of energy, complete with prickly sensation. Yes. And I felt like it was David saying that I should do the show and come and talk about the grieving process and the fact that, yes, indeed, he is around. And I think you felt him too, that moment.
Oh, I did. I did. Almost knocked me over. There was no way that I could mistake him.
No, it was a whoosh. It was like a breeze of cold.
Yes.
But it wasn't uncomfortable cold. It was very welcoming cold air. And it was energy. It was cold, loving energy, like a very beautiful breeze that came and said, yep, you got to do it. You got to go on. And I've had that, I can only describe it, whooshes since his passing.
Have you really?
I haven't. I've had it a lot when some clients come in to see me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Very strongly with some, more than others. And when I talk about him, I also got it right before his memorial, when it was a dream one night when he said that for his memorial to put a bowl out of crystals and to give it to people, give everyone who wanted to take a crystal, and they did. And for some reason, the crystals are still in that bowl. About 60 people came to the memorial, and there's still about 50 crystals in that bowl. It was sort of like the loaves and the fishes. I don't know. There's still crystals in the bowl, and I'm still giving them out to clients.
Well, the thing is that David belongs to the community.
Yeah, and he really, really loved this town, and he really did a lot for people in this town. It's kind of humorous, actually, because the more since his passing, I'm hearing that he was going to run for town council. I didn't know that. You find out about people after they pass, to keep the music, the live music playing after hours. I was hearing all kinds of stuff about all that he did for the homeless. I kind of knew that he did that. And it was funny because I often said, David, you put so much energy into like helping others, and I think that's a good thing, but at the same time it was a little frustrating because he wasn't taking care of himself as much as he was taking care of others. And that ultimately is what happened to him. He didn't go to the doctor, he didn't take care of himself, and he ended up having a heart attack in his sleep. after
Wow.
having a day taking care of some of his friends that, well, kind of took advantage of him.
Well, I don't, in my mind, people don't take advantage of David.
No.
In my mind,
He served.
they
did.
loved him and he served them, and he was there for the community.
He was.
In my mind.
It was that way too, but it was a couple of people in particular, one friend in particular, every time that they called, he would jump, and that person was not a very giving sort. And I do believe it was a very strong past life connection he had with that person. And it kind of annoyed me because that person was not a giving person.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I find out, the more frustrating it is. But David was a very gentle man, and he took care of people and he took care of animals, and he was just very loving. He seemed otherworldly, and he's very missed. People are still crying. It's hard to walk through the flea market even last week, and people are like, "Where's David?" And when I tell them what happened, people are crying.
Yeah.
It shows a lot of love.
Yes.
And God, I miss him.
Yeah.
I miss him so much. But it was frustrating for a person who does what I do to say, like I expected in what my kind of work, I expected to see him, and I haven't seen him. And I expected to have him like make himself more available. No, he hasn't been around, and so that kind of made, well, he has been around, but I just haven't seen him. I wanted to see him, but I
Why
haven't.
do you think it is that way?
I think that he went very quickly, and I think he's adjusting on the other side to where he is. And I think a great deal of people have said, and I think they mean well, that it was his time, and I vehemently feel that it was not his time to go. His physical body could not stay here any longer, but his consciousness wanted to remain. And I think that's definitely a duality of, he didn't want to go. And so there's that, it wasn't going gently into the night.
Really?
He really wanted to remain here.
I-
He was talking the night before, the day before he passed, when he was out playing with our dog. He was talking about wanting to do a podcast and wanting to do different shows and being here. So to suddenly be taken from us like that, I think it was not his time. The physical body is what left. The consciousness is very strongly here. So when people say it was his time or he chose to go, I absolutely disagree with that. Absolutely disagree. So that's when I'm in denial with that very much. It was not his time.
Well, I'm glad you're sharing that.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a nuance, or that is an event that not very many people discuss, and I think that's important.
People like to do the comforting cliches, and I think that, well, also when they say, well, it's nice that he went in his sleep. Is it though? You know, I mean, it's peaceful to a point, but it doesn't, it kind of lessens the fact that this man died. It's not that nice that he went in his sleep. Yes, of course he didn't get mauled by a tiger and eaten, but at the same time, it doesn't lessen the fact that he's gone in his physical body from us. But then again, he's not really gone, and I do understand that. Consciousness is not destroyed. So it's like I'm very deeply thinking about all this all the time, and I can't get it out of my mind.
You know, one of the questions I have is, he went quickly,
He went very quickly,
but he's here.
but he's definitely
He's very
still here.
definitely here. So my question is, when he got to the other side, and I think that was rapidly,
Very much so.
he was welcomed.
He was very welcomed, and it's funny because I'm not the only one that's seen this. David was a huge Tolkien fan. He loved The Lord of the Rings and all that. In fact, if you watch any of those movies, he looks like absolutely every single character in it all at once. And when he was cremated, I had the undertaker put the books with him, so they all went up together. And well, I guess I burned some books. That was weird, but I did. But it's funny because people have come to me completely differently, different sorts of people, and said, I had a dream, and David looked like he was in Middle Earth. He looked like he was in the Tolkien realm. So many people, at least 5 or 6 different people, have said that he looked like he was in where the Lord of the Rings took place.
Oh, I
in
think
their
that's
dreams.
wonderful.
So that's how I picture him too. His heaven might be different than other people's heaven. I think he's in Middle Earth or the realm of Tolkien. And
That's
he
wonderful.
might be there for a while until he decides. He's on a hobbit's journey. That's how I like to picture it. But I still miss him. We miss him here. My dog is very sad. My cockatoos are sad. Poor Sweetie Poo, the cockatoo, has been sitting on a ping pong ball for 2 months now, trying to hatch it. That's very sad.
How are the birds doing?
Not good. Nobody's good. We're all terribly sad. And yet I realize that he's not gone. We talk about him all the time. But I do wake up and I go, David, where are you? Which is very ironic considering I'm the one that's been telling people for 38 years when I see clients, it takes 3 months for a spirit to actually be able to communicate. And for me, it's only been 2 months. I do have to say that one huge event that he did do right as soon as he passed. Of course, he died about 3 a.m. in the morning, which is the time that people tend to die, 3 a.m., the time that most people are born and most people die at that time. But when the police came and everyone came, and I, of course, was in shock, as was my son. By the way, he also chose my son's birthday to die.
Why did they do that? What is the significance of that?
I don't know, but couldn't he have picked another day?
Well, but do you think he chose that date?
I don't know, but
Did he?
There's 365 days in a year. Why that day? It kind of ruined
But
it.
I think it's interesting.
I do think so. A lot of times people come and tell me that their parents died on their birthdays or Christmas Day or New Year's Day, and they seem to go for like big days somehow. I guess it is a choice to a point. But at the time of his passing, when all the medics were there and everything, wouldn't you know it, the car horns and the lights started going on.
Really?
And my neighbor, who I don't know whether she's a believer in any of this, she was outside comforting me, and we both looked at each other and said, David, the car was honking, the lights were going. It was his last big hurrah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. That's the same car that got, gone. But anyway.
That's going to be an interesting story in its own.
It is. I was looking at it, not actually shocked, kind of expecting it, like, oh, look, the car is going by itself. That was it, though. That was the last big hurrah, the car.
So he went about 3 a.m.
3 a.m. And then the car was going off about 7:30 in the morning by itself.
Wow.
And that was it. And then since then, people are shocked that I'm able to do my sessions with clients, my clairvoyance sessions. But I started them about 5 days after he passed again. And I've been telling clients that the reason is that I'm able to do them because the information comes through me, it's not of me.
Right.
And
because
people are looking at me like, you're doing your readings? And I'm like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost a comfort because I'm able to do it and take my mind off what's going on in my world.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. Because if you didn't do that, you would be in a
grief
shell.
Is weird. Grief is weird because, songs and moments and every item left behind in the house becomes a sacred artifact. Everything that belonged to David now is like, oh, I can't get rid of that because that was David's. It's funny that he used to wear this really, really odd wizard hat. I'm not kidding. David wore a wizard hat. And I used to be like, David, are you going? It was a wool thing. He wore it in the winter. And I'm like, David, are you really going out in that? Oh my God, David. As soon as he died, the thing I most wanted to find was that wizard hat. So the things we sometimes wonder about people, they're the most precious. Now
Yes.
that wizard hat's in a place of honor in the house. It's like on a monument.
And so you have his things.
I had some of his things. I gave a lot to family and to different places.
That was very sweet of
different
you.
people. And they were all crying. Everyone's been crying, so I guess he was very loved.
Oh, yeah. No, he is one
He
of
is.
the most popular people in
He
Woodstock.
is.
So he left suddenly.
He left really sad.
And the two birds, how many birds do you
Two
have?
cockatoos, and one of them's trying to hatch a ping pong ball for 2 months now. And the dog looks sadder than ever.
Yes.
And my son and I are barely hanging on, although, as you all know, I believe.
Yeah.
But I keep going, where's David?
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like I'm so divided into two people right now. Or more. I think I'm more than two.
Well, it comes in waves, I
It comes
would
in
imagine.
waves. It comes in waves. And I know, like, we go on. There's a consciousness remains. I get worried sometimes. I'm like, wow, there's really no good relatives up in heaven for David. So I'm like, who's up there with him? I hope he meets cool
Oh, that's
people.
a good question.
Yeah, I'm like, we had no relatives that we really want to see again. So who's up there?
You know,
maybe
but there
he's
are a
hanging
lot
with
of
John
people.
John.
Yeah, he could be. But you know, that's a common thing.
Yeah,
I
it's
hear
like-
that from people.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, there's nobody he wants to see. And then I keep picturing him with our little dachshund who he missed so much, Luna. And I picture him and Luna playing. And I'm like, well, why do I think that's my imagination? Maybe he really is playing with Luna.
Oh, I think he is.
He must be playing with Luna. Luna must be running to him. So
Otherwise, I doubt if you would have thought about
yeah,
that.
why, the things that come into my head are so vivid and I'm not even thinking about them. So I figure he's with Luna and he's in his Tolkien realm and he's visiting people. Maybe he met David Bowie up there, unless Bowie's in space somewhere. Maybe David is too, because he believed in UFOs, so, And I know that when we mourn, we're mourning more for us left here. Because they're on an adventure. They're on an amazing adventure.
Well, and when you mourn, you're mourning the relationship, which
Yeah.
has changed.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I've changed. I'm never going to be the same.
How is that?
I'm never going to be, well, I keep thinking like, some of my friends are sort of like we're kind of laughing. I feel like Miss Havisham now. I feel like I'm a widow. I'm widow Saxman. I should be
Oh, that's
floating.
cute.
I should be wearing black Victorian gowns and floating down the street. I will probably soon. But right now I feel like I'm still a kid. I'm still learning stuff constantly.
Oh, I think that's extremely
I'm
important.
constantly learning. I find delight in little things, like going to the flea market still and, seeing my friends there and playing with ghosts.
But I think, that sets an example,
Yeah.
and it is a teaching event.
Yeah.
Because nobody in this culture nobody will touch grief with a 10-foot pole.
No, and I'm all about grief. I'm about grief, and I'm also about getting over grief and living life fully. I mean, we know that we go on. We can't change. Energy remains. It does not disappear. It can't. And that's science. That's not even metaphysical. That's science.
How are your friends taking all this?
I think people are trying to avoid me because they don't know how to talk about death.
Yeah.
They don't know how to talk about death. Sometimes if I see somebody and they'll be like, well, how are you? And I'm like, I'm sad. They'll be like, why? Why? Well, David's dead. They don't know how to answer. I think I'm just too blunt about it. And then my closest friend, Sarah, she's really good with it. She's been helping me through it. And we laugh a lot and we cry a lot and we've been really good. But a lot of other people just don't know how to handle it. And I also don't want to I don't know. I'm not one of these people who call up people and say, I need to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about it now, but I'm not I'd rather just be on my own.
Yeah.
Because people don't tend to understand.
Well, and of course,
It's hard.
in our culture, people have a tendency to say, well, just get over it.
Well, yeah.
And I don't think we do.
You can't. I'll never get over it. I'll change, but grief is I hear, and I've read books. I've read about 3 books on grieving since this event happened, because I read a lot. And one thing that it is during the initial 2 months, you're in shock. And then when the shock wears off, you're back to the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel myself very emotional now. I'll cry a lot, and then I'll laugh, and then I'll remember stuff, and then I'll even joke about it, which sounds very disrespectful. But David and I and my son, we always had a rather dark sense of humor. We always had gallows humor about stuff anyway. So that's where we are right now.
Oh, I think that's wonderful.
We've always been a bit of the Addams Family, so it's sort of this is, and it's always just been us. I mean, there's not a whole lot of other family around, so it's just us, and how we perceive the world is a little maybe askew to other people. But I worry sometimes that he was afraid when he left, or that he felt like he didn't want to leave us, or that he was guilty about leaving us. But he left, so we have to manage.
So you feel the possibility is there that he left at a time that he was not.
Oh, he was definitely not ready to go. I don't feel this whole thing about it was his time. He chose to go. No way. Absolutely not.
I am so glad you're sharing that.
I think the physical body could not go on. It's like anyone who has, whether a heart condition or cancer or any kind of profound illness, or is simply not taking care of their body. The body shuts down. The body is a machine that breaks. And it can't be fixed. If you don't go to a doctor particularly, or any doctors don't even work sometimes, what we gotta say. The body cannot go on. And the consciousness remains. This was a man who never once in the 40 years I knew him ever said that I want to die or I'm depressed. He wanted to live. He loved life. So he definitely was not ready to go.
So do you see him coming back?
No, I think right now he's going to stay up there and be a knight for a while. Be a knight of the realm.
Well, so he's having an adventure.
He's
then.
having an adventure, and sometimes I feel like, wow, I'm missing out on that adventure by being here and doing the same thing. And I think in a way my world has become a little smaller because I can't, I also am not at liberty to travel as much as I used to, because he was the keeper of the animals and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so now I kind of have to get used to being a little more
with the birds and
with the birds
and
my baby ghost.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to get used to that. But I don't know how I'll be to it a year from now, 2 years from now.
Do you foresee possibly having David with you
in the future, or as a spirit?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I talk to him before the readings now. Whether or not he has made an appearance before the readings, even today, a lovely girl came in from Boston to see me, and I knew she was coming from a distance. And I said to him, out loud, because I have his picture, a couple of pictures in my space at the shop. I said, please help me, David, with this so it will flow. And I think it did. She was very happy. And you know another thing, people should not be scared to admit when they're grieving. When people come into my shop, and when they come for readings, when they ask how am I, since David's passing, I cannot say, oh, I'm fine. I tell everybody.
Good.
When people say, how are you? I'm like, you know what? I'm not that good. My husband just died a couple of months ago. And they look at me, they're always like, whoa. And they're like, you're here? I'm like, yeah, I'm not well. I cannot say, oh, I'm fine. I tell
You're
them.
not fine.
I tell them because
You're changed.
I'm changed, and also I don't feel grounded enough to say, oh, I'm fine, everything's normal. I want them to know that this is not the norm for me.
This is the new normal.
This is a new normal. This is a new normal. I'm not ashamed to say, like, if I'm acting weird, maybe this is the reason. I feel unapologetic about saying, I'm not okay. This is how it is now. But another thing that's kind of different, a lot of people have always been, well, people have talked about, like, they're looking forward to going to heaven. They want to, like, end this life. Like, people don't want to live, like when I tell them, oh, you're going to have long lives. And they're like, oh, no. Well, I've always been one that wanted to live forever. And nowadays, with David gone, I'm like, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Maybe I'll go see him. Maybe when I pass, there's going to be someone to see me. Because in the past, I'd be like, I don't really want to go to the heavenly realm. I'd rather be here. Now I'm like, well, David's there. Maybe I can visit now. Maybe I'll go. When the time is right, not before. I'm not afraid anymore. Was I ever afraid? No. Death doesn't bother me at all anymore. I'm like, David will be there, and we'll be young again.
Well, and you have the son.
Yeah. I have him. He's taken this pretty hard. This is his dad, you know. It's so bad. It's like Father's Day is this coming weekend.
Yeah. Well, and his father is gone, and there was no illness.
Well, there's no illness. There's no way to talk about it. There's no way of saying, like, there's no closure at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's an illness and you prepare yourself for it, it's like, well, we were playing with Ghost. We went to Sam's Club. His last dinner was a slice of pizza in Sam's Club. That's pretty pathetic. And then he passed. You know, and I want it's very sad for me because there's no words really. So, and Ghost is looking out the window, so I hope she knows. Well, one thing that makes me think that she knows, and this sounds extremely morbid, but I have to say it. Around Halloween, I had gotten her, and dog toys have gotten so weird lately. You
Yeah.
don't have a dog, do you?
Not now.
Well, because of my very dark sense of humor, I had gotten Ghost for Halloween. It's a dog toy. It's a coffin with little ghosts and little stuffed ghosts that you put into the holes in the coffin. It's a plush toy. And I got her that for Halloween. Right after David died, she brought it from upstairs to the bed and brought it down to the sofa and was playing with
Really?
it downstairs. And I looked at her, and she looked up at me with the coffin in her mouth. And I had this feeling like she knew exactly what that was.
Oh,
And she
that is-
looked at me, she never brought it down before, but she looked at me, and then she looked out the window, and she looked up at me with the coffin in her mouth, and I thought, she knows what happened to her daddy. And my son was like, how did she know what a coffin was? Well, apparently she did. It's just...
Do you think she sees him?
I would have thought normally dogs do, but I don't think she does. I think she's waiting for him to come home. Which is really sad.
So,
I think
if she
animals do
sees
tend
him
to
in a couple of months, that's going to be an unusual
It's going to be
experience for
unusual.
her.
It usually takes 3 months. Now, I don't know exactly why it takes 3 months. The Buddhists talk about the Bardo realm, which is like, I think it's like 40 days in the Bardo realm, or perhaps 60 days. I've heard it both ways. It's like the time when the spirit is waiting in between this world and the next. But I've also heard that the first 3 days after a person passes, the spirit is close. I didn't see him then, except for the car thing, but I didn't actually see him. I just felt him, heard him. So I was a little disappointed I didn't see him kind of walking around, but, you know,
Do you expect to?
Yeah, I did, actually.
I mean,
really
but do
did.
you expect to in, say, the next 2 months or 3 months?
You know, right now I'm just going to say that he's on his own big adventure, and I don't want to bother him from it. He's had enough here. He was anxious to go on his next adventure. Every night he would watch the Gaia Network. He would look at the spiritual documentaries and the UFO documentaries. And perhaps because I work in that realm every day, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to watch that. He would watch it. I was like, I was more interested in like the grounded kind of stuff. It's funny. He was always looking at the psychic, the metaphysical stuff, and I wasn't.
And the UFO stuff.
And the UFO stuff.
How did he integrate the spiritual with the UFO?
Well, I think that there's affiliation with the UFOs and angels and the whole cosmic people, the cosmic beings. He used to always speak about the aliens and the angels and everything from the cosmos as being one. And some beliefs that they were all part of the whole thing. That's what he believed.
Well, and of course, with the 3-month adjustment period, then you kind of leave things open.
Leaving it open, I'm just seeing whatever comes my way. But it is, it feels weird. I feel very lonely and detached from most humans here. David is not here.
Yeah.
He understood my weirdness. It's going to take a special kind of person to understand all the weirdness that is me. Because, he's seen me through the years do this kind of work, completely understanding what I do, how I am.
And for many years. I mean, you met him young, too.
Yeah. And also, he was so excited about, the prospect of the next step with this whole thing, with perhaps the TV series and everything that we're talking about with the book, and he's a character and everything, and now he'll see it in his way, but he won't be here to enjoy it. And, well, he will be here. I can't say he's not going to be here, because he will be here. So, it's interesting how immediately upon his passing, 2 days after, I had to go get this tattoo on me with the old English D with the eagle carrying him to heaven.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's hard to see, but I had to get it. I had to get something that was a mark of David.
Where did you go?
To the one in town.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't there several tattoo artists in town?
There's one that I just walked in and I said I wanted something like that, and I didn't realize until after I got it and watched the Lord of the Rings that it's the giant eagles that take the warriors to
Really?
Middle Earth, and I didn't realize until I got it. My son pointed that out.
Wow.
So I had to get it. It was like a tribal marking. So I felt he was there during that time too. I had to do it all. And you were there for the memorial.
Yes, I
It really
was.
nice.
And
Yeah.
it was lovely.
It was a very beautiful memorial. So, I mean, it's interesting. I felt disappointed in myself that for what I do, I didn't feel him more. So,
You know what? I think that's the way it should have been.
yeah, I think
You're doing what other people do. You can't be the exception to the rule.
well, I've talked to other people's dead relatives every day.
Yeah.
And I talked to, like, the 2 days ago, I had somebody's 2 German shepherds show up in the reading, you know, and sometimes I'll get, like, their pet turtles coming through, but I couldn't get David. And
It's just not time
it's just
yet.
not time. It's just not time. But I'm still going strong. I'm still there.
Do you think when
I'm
he
here.
comes through you're going to fuss at him?
Probably. I'm going to ask him why he always wore that wizard hat that I now treasure, you know, and why he had to go when he did. But it's like we said, it's a physical body. The physical body couldn't stay on anymore. It's just, we're just bodies. We're actually much more than bodies, but the bodies are what gets us sick. And
But you know, I
It
feel grateful that he is such a beautiful person.
yeah.
And he didn't go through a period of
No.
being ill and
No,
incapacitated.
that would have been really
and-
hard to watch. Yeah,
It
so in
is.
that way, I am grateful too. And I've read so many books about people who have, you know, suffered so greatly, and we don't want that.
No.
I just don't want him to be afraid of the other side or afraid of death. I'm always worried, like even when our pets pass, I'm afraid that they're going to be frightened at the moment. And I don't want anyone to ever be frightened. Since that episode happened with David, I've rescued or tried to rescue 2 different animals that I found. And both of them didn't make it, but I tried. One was a baby goose, and the other one was a little baby newborn squirrel that fell from a tree.
Oh.
And both of them I kept with me. Well, particularly the squirrel, I kept it in my store all day and tried to nurse it back to health, but it didn't. But I clung to it and took care of it for the day and made sure that it didn't die in a bad way.
Right.
And when it left gently.
Yes.
And I know that he would have known exactly what to do for every animal. So I think that he gave me the opportunity to kind of help these creatures pass. He was very much like a St. Francis type.
Do you think you might be doing more of that?
Yes, if I find someone, I'll
Wild
take care
animal
of them.
rescue?
It's really hard though. I get too attached. But I will, if I find somebody, I'll take care of them. Anything. I just don't want anyone to be scared.
You know, that's a really common thing. I know that when I was studying animal communication, that the goat that taught me animal communication taught me how to communicate with him. And then he said to me, "You're not an animal communicator."
Why did he say that? Why?
Because I did not, as an animal communicator, I did not step back from the animal. I was emotionally with that animal.
How I would be. I think, too.
And I have a guest, Casey is a regular on the show, and she's a wild animal.
Oh, is she?
Yes, rescuer.
Rehabilitate?
And
Oh.
she's got this, you can feel it and you can see it. She's got this, and I
wow.
don't have it.
No.
And I doubt if you do
I don't
too.
think I can't detach. I go right into their little
Yeah.
brains and hearts.
So it's
I can't
yeah.
detach now.
See, Casey's fabulous that way. She
Yeah.
does what she can, and she makes it as comfortable as she can for the animals. but there's this,
No, I couldn't do that.
And I
I'm more
couldn't either.
frightened. I'm more frightened into them.
yeah.
And then you have to let go.
Mm-hmm. And of course, that's one of the things that makes it so good for you when you do readings, because you're right there.
Yes, right in. Right in. And I always tell people, like when they come to see me, it's like there's no time in a, time is not linear. And that's the most important thing that I like to tell people, or that I feel. When a person sits with me, I see past, present, and future. I see them as a child. I see them all the way through. All the time is happening at once. And anything that could be predicted in the future is already happening on another plane of existence. But you know what? Here we go again. I didn't predict David. What happened there? It was a complete shock to me. I had no ability to predict his passing. People have said to me I was too close. Too close. I had no prediction. It was a fear. It was a great fear of mine that he was going to pass. But I couldn't predict it. And that made me angry at myself too. But then again, if you predict something like that, you'd always be living in fear.
Right,
You know?
right. So it's really best, for your day-to-day life to be
Yeah, but
positive,
my God, I was
calmer.
so angry. I remember for the first month, I was so angry at myself. Like, I didn't see it. I could have, I remember saying to my friend Sarah that I killed him because I didn't get him to go to the hospital. But he wouldn't. He wouldn't go. Because he would never, ever, I'd be like, he'd say that he felt very tired, and I'm like, you should go to a doctor and get it checked. And he'd be like, oh no, I'll be fine. But something was in my head to say, go to the hospital and go to the doctor, and he would never go.
Well, you didn't want to.
Can't force a person. Actually, I guess I could. No, I
Well-
couldn't have forced him. I couldn't have forced him. And that's the guilt that's in the beginning.
Yeah, but that's also the relationship that you have with
Mm-hmm.
him.
The stubbornness.
And,
that's-
when I was working in the pantry, there was a volunteer that was with me for a very short time, and when I was trying to get a building. And he referred to his wife as she who must be obeyed. And, that's not the relationship I
No,
have,
no.
and that's not the relationship you have.
No way. I was
And
not.
so, because you don't want to be she who must be
No,
obeyed,
No.
well, you just have to allow things to transpire.
Yeah. I mean, I could not say anything to make him do anything like that. And it was always in my head, like, could I have forced it to happen? He wouldn't have listened. But that whole thing of me not being able to predict that, when I tell hundreds of other people, oh, you should get your heart checked, or you should get your thyroid checked. How often do I say this in a daily consulting with people? And yet for David, he wouldn't listen. So this is making me a little, frankly, a little insane.
Well, it shouldn't, because that was the way he wanted it.
Yeah.
If he was willing to do what you said, then he would have done it.
And frankly, here we go about the healthcare system, but to get a doctor appointment, you have to wait like 4 months anyway, and by that time you're dead anyway, so what difference does it make?
It's awful.
It's impossible to get a doctor appointment around here, or anywhere, I guess. But that was a major problem.
It is in the Hudson River Valley.
It's really
Everybody,
hard.
when they left the city, they
Came
brought
here.
their medical
Yeah.
records with them,
Yeah.
and there's just nothing. So
It's
if you
really
had
hard.
shown up there at the hospital, you
No.
would have gotten something, and
Yeah.
maybe, he would have had what? But that wasn't what he wanted.
It wasn't. It was not. And that may be what the choice of going to a doctor came into. But that part of it is very frustrating. Gone through a lot of different emotions with this, but it's tough. And then I go back to that whole. It's almost like a child asking the question, "Where's David? Where is he?" I don't know. Is there, it brings back to the whole question, heaven? Heaven? Is there heaven, or is this heaven? Is this, or do they stay by their loved ones? I think they stay by their loved ones. I think their heaven is whatever they believe it to be. Whatever religion they are, whatever. And if his heaven is the Tolkien universe, that's where he is. Could be anywhere. Or he could just be here now and then, visiting us, playing with Luna.
That's something that maybe
it's individual.
That's something that maybe you can investigate.
Because I just saw him, as I asked that, I just saw him playing with Luna in a field with dachshunds. So I guess that's where he is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, and he's quite happy, and he's young and happy and healthy. But he loved Woodstock so much. He loved it. And one thing, I'm very glad to move here because he loved it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, and it's been good for both of us. But it's very, it's sadness for those left behind. So often people get messages a lot on their cell phones from people from who have passed.
Really?
Lights blink, computers. I mean, there's a lot of messages that come through electronics. I haven't gotten anything like that, although I do get sometimes music. Like I have a CD player. Yeah, I still listen to CDs. 400 on shuffle, and certain songs come up that I think are directly connected to David that he sends me randomly.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I think their messages coming. I think once in a while, he didn't have any lights flashing or anything, but the car was big enough for me. And
That's a mess.
yeah.
Well, do you think it's going to? Someday, I guess they'll show up and say, "Well, your car's here."
It's funny, the energy that we put in things.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with somebody that's not nice driving David's car.
Right.
It's David's car, his energy's in it. And the car fell into the hands of someone that I don't like. That bothers me. And that is...
Do you think David cares?
I don't think he cares necessarily, but, karmically we'll have to see what happens to that car. I maybe put too much attachment on stuff. I've been taking a lot of his jewelry, and it's also funny, he made a lot of jewelry. He used to make crystal jewelry. So I went, right after he passed, I went into my store and I took all the stuff that he made and took it home. I didn't want anyone else to have it. And then about a week later, a girl comes in with her family, and they came down from Albany. And I'm looking around her necklace that she's wearing, and she has on a necklace that David made. And I said to her, that necklace you have on, where did you get that? She said, I got it from a birthday present. A family from Woodstock gave it to me for my 16th birthday. I said, have you ever been to Woodstock before? She said, no. She said, but somebody told me a man named David made it. Comes into my store. I have never, in all the years I had a shop here, had seen anybody wear a necklace that David made come into the store. And that was a week after David died. So, there you go.
Well, that was not an accident.
That wasn't an accident.
At all.
And then the next day, a girl came in that had a corgi named Milo. We used to have a corgi named Milo. So, I mean, stuff like that was happening. And I think these little tidbits are sent to my way to say, yeah, I'm here.
So you've opened yourself up to those signs.
The signs are very strong. I think that they're his way of saying, I'm still around.
The signs are there for everyone who
Everyone
loses a
has it.
family member,
And just be
if
aware of
that
the signs.
person will be aware.
And I think one thing we have to remember, in any of us who are grieving, is to don't overanalyze the signs. Don't think, well, this can't be real. Logic plays logic ruins the intuitiveness all the time. If we overthink something, we're ruining the signs. We're ruining the messages.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah, logic. We could overanalyze anything and make it seem like it doesn't matter. And I think it's really important not to overanalyze anything. If you get a message, take it for what it is. It's a gift from your loved one. And don't sit there and say, well, that can't be true. It's just a coincidence. There are no coincidences. And this is something that I always would feel before David, after David. There's no coincidences.
So if you see the shiny penny,
Pick the penny up. And by the way, the pennies now have become dimes. A lot of people are saying they're dimes from heaven. Maybe it's inflation. I don't know. People are saying they're finding dimes in corners. Not so much pennies anymore. Shiny dimes. Oh, and if you find a penny or a dime, check the date on it, because the dates have significance. The year.
wow.
Yeah. The year may be a year of the loved one who has passed, or a birthday of someone.
So
There are messages constantly.
So the message is that they're there. You
They're
just
there.
have to open yourself up.
It's constant. It's constant riddles. It's a constant treasure map, and we have to follow it. Follow the breadcrumbs to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Not to be too cliche, but that's what I'm getting. I just saw it in my head, so I'm going to describe it. It's all there. We just have to be open enough to decipher it, and it's there. It's there for us. It takes them a lot of energy to come through. So any little thing that they're sending us is big for them. It takes a lot of, the reason that we get cold is not because it's scary for us. It's they're using our life force as a battery. You knew that, right?
No.
They're using us. When you walk into a house that you think is haunted and the hair comes up in the back of your neck, it's not because it's creepy. It's they're using you as a battery to give them strength to manifest.
Oh, wow.
And I knew that from a very, when I first started doing any of this, I used to investigate haunted houses. I wanted to be a parapsychologist. God, I could go back 100 years. And that was the spirits in the house. It's that whoosh we felt, that was David giving us the strength to.
I really felt that that's what the whoosh was.
That was a whoosh. The whoosh, that's the only way I can describe it. It's taking our life force, but not in a negative way, but just saying, I have to come through, and that's the way to come through, the coldness.
And it was very powerful.
It was a very powerful whoosh. That's the
You know,
only way I can say.
you couldn't kid yourself
No.
and say, oh, well, it was just a breeze.
He wanted
well.
us to do this.
No,
He wanted us to do this, and
Yeah.
I'm glad we did. And you know what? I haven't even cried once.
No.
No, because it's fine.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be a mess, but I'm not.
No.
No.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, it's...
So have you thought about what are some messages that you might receive from David in the future?
Well, I think to know that he's all
Like
right.
that
is a
was
big
one.
I think to know that he's all right and he's happy is one. But I think the whole thing about the realm, the Tolkien realm, is very important. To know that he's happy and that he's fine. He hasn't said he's sorry for going yet, though. Maybe he's not. Maybe
maybe he wants to
knows
wait
he
a
has
while
to
for
go.
that.
I think we got to wait a couple, at least another month. It's not the 3-month time. I really don't
Well,
know
he's
the
not ready
significance of
because
3
maybe
months.
you'll just tell him what you think.
Yeah, and also the whole thing about 3 months is weird. I don't know exactly why. And you know, when people are grieving, it's okay to admit anger. I'm a bit angry. I'm a bit angry. It's like, why did you leave? This is kind of a mess here. You know, I can't be like, it's all right. It's not all right. I'm a little annoyed.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Oh my gosh, we've got 5 minutes left.
I know.
Well, do we have a final message?
Just believe and be open to it. Open your eyes and see and feel, and don't. It's the whole thing with the logic. The logic is our enemy in this. And it's funny because as much as I do believe in the metaphysical aspect of it, the spiritual aspect, I also believe in the science of it. But as science has proven, energy doesn't die. It transmutes into something else. Consciousness goes on, energy changes. You cannot disappear.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
We do not disappear.
Well, listen, I hope that you'll come on again next month.
I will.
This coming month.
I will. And
So
we'll be in the 3 months time.
yes, we'll be in the 3 month time. So we're looking forward to having her back.
Thank you.
And we will announce the dates ahead of time.
Yes.
And I want to thank Ellen very, very much for having us here.
For thanking us again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Ellen.
Good night. Sweet dreams, everybody.